Son of a... Well, that just happened.
Well, still got the shot. I've collected a handful of welding lenses over the past couple of years and wanted to share what I think of each one. In the fixed category, I have a few of these dirt cheap lenses, as well as the WENS Ultra Electric Blue. For the auto darkening category, I own the lens that came with the Viking 1840 by Lincoln Electric, this RADNOR 24S, the Tradesman by Arc One, and this Tefuawe F10. I'll be looking at price and value as well as let you look through each one so you can see the color as well as the clarity. Let's start off with the fixed lens because a lot of your inexpensive welding hoods are going to come with a very inexpensive fixed lens, but inexpensive does not mean that is not a good value. For beginners, I'm a big advocate for auto darkening lenses because of how big of a learning curve welding is to begin with. Being able to see what you're doing at all times will help you focus on what is important when you're learning to weld, like rod angle, distance, and speed, and learning to read the puddle. But there's something about even a cheap fixed lens that is just so good when it comes to clarity. My understanding of it is when you weld through a fixed lens, you are just looking through a piece of glass or whatever the tinted material is. On the other hand, auto darkening lenses have different layers, filters, and particles to allow for the auto darkening process. So you're inherently going to look through more layers. So when I say that these cheap fixed lenses are good value, I mean you can get a super clear lens for under $10. So arguably this could be a good way to learn because this is how pros used to weld before this auto darkening technology. And like I said earlier, because it's so clear, you can focus on learning how to do things like reading the puddle. Striking an arc just might be a little difficult at first.
So this is what you're going to see prior to striking an arc because this is a fixed lens, just black. And there you go, you strike your arc. Now, I'm not really a fan of this yellow color of this cheap fixed lens, but I really do like how the contrast isn't too high between the arc and its surroundings, so you can see where you're going pretty well. Now, one thing I want you all to keep in mind is that you can actually see the puddle a lot better in real life while you are welding rather than looking through this lens shot because it's going through the camera that's recording through the lens, so it's just kind of correcting itself too at the same time, and you can actually see the surroundings as well as the puddle a lot better in real life. I'm just giving you guys an idea of what you're looking through.
Next is the WENS Ultra Electric Blue, and this is hands down the best lens I own, but is by far the most expensive. I got this from plwelder.com for about 130 bucks, which sounds crazy for a fixed lens, and it really is. Don't get me wrong. The best way to describe this lens is beautiful. Not only can you see the puddle clear as day, but you can also really see your surroundings too. So there's never a time where you're guessing where you're going. In my opinion, there's no reason for a DIYer to buy this lens. My recommendation is if this will break the bank, don't even try one out. Let's say if a friend of yours has one, just don't do it because you're not going to want anything else. Not a great value for most, so let's just move on.
So again, because this is a fixed lens, this is what you see prior to striking your arc. It's just darkness. And here we go, and man, look at that thing. It's just so pretty. I'm not really a fan of the colored lenses like the yellows and the blues, and this lens is just so clear. The arc shot, looking through the camera, looking through the lens, just doesn't do it justice. In real life, it's just so clear. But one thing it does do well is it shows the contrast in its surroundings and how clear you can see. You can just see for days, really, of where you're going and your surroundings and what you're doing. So it's just such a pleasure. It's just so pleasant to weld with this lens. It really is such a beautiful lens.
Next is the auto darkening lenses, and this is the Viking 1840, and this is my first welding hood and it was gifted to me, so it holds some sentimental value, and that's about it. This hood is pretty cool, I guess, because you can adjust the shade, intensity, and sensitivity of the lens, and it features a grind mode where it will not darken at all while you're grinding or while you're welding. I say while you're welding because half the time you forget you're on the grind setting, you go to strike an arc and accidentally arc flash yourself and it sucks. But the benefit of this is that if you weld back and forth indoors and outdoors, you can adjust your shade accordingly. Or if you just weld indoors with the constant lighting, you can fine tune the shade to your exact liking as well, I guess. Being that this hood is upwards of $200, it's a little unnecessary in my opinion. If you want to be able to see while you're grinding, you can just get a hood with a flip lens or buy an aftermarket one. A shade 10 lens works for most people in most situations, and I find myself putting the settings up to 10 exclusively anyway. And the last problem is this lens is an uncommon size. I'm just guessing, but Lincoln probably wants you to buy their clear lens replacement so they can make it an uncommon size, so it's not only harder to find, but it's probably more expensive too. Oh yeah, and the lens isn't even that great. It's pretty blurry. You can probably tell I don't recommend this lens and hood.
So this being our first auto darkening lens, this is what you're going to see prior to striking an arc, and in this lens, this is also your grind mode. There we go. We strike the arc and it gets dark. I want to mention that you probably noticed that you can see a glare and you see a second arc there and even a third in a minute. Long story short, that's just we're looking through multiple lenses, and it's not anything against the lens, the welding lens itself. It's just looking at through multiple layers. But you can already see that this lens is so much grainier than the WENS lens and the cheap fix lens. Just not a huge fan. It works, but that's about it.
Now this RADNOR 24S lens was given to me secondhand, so keep that in mind. It already had a bunch of miles on it. But I do have to mention, I'm not sure if this is common after a lot of use, but while welding, the clarity gradually gets blurry and then it almost resets itself and snaps back to being clear again, then starts all over. Let me know in the comments if you know if this happens to all lenses over time or if you think it's just specific to this one. Now I had a little trouble finding this lens online. Turns out RADNOR is an air gas brand, which is a welding and gas supply company, and I couldn't even find it on their website. So I'll just let you see through the lens anyway and move on.
So right off the bat, I'm not really a huge fan of this yellow. Just personally don't like it. But you're gonna see what I was talking about earlier with it being blurry, and you can see that blurry ring around it, and it's gonna snap back clear again. It's just gonna get blurrier and blurrier, blurrier, and then snap back clear right there. And other than that and the color, this is a pretty good lens. Visibility is pretty good. It's clear. I can see my surroundings very well as the puddle. So pretty good lens. Got it secondhand. Can't say too much about it.
Now this is exciting because we are now getting into the amazing value lenses I found so far. This is the Tradesman by Arc 1. Being fed up with the Lincoln and the RADNOR lens, I was in the market for a new auto lens. A friend of mine recommended the Tradesman and let me try his on, and it was a world of a difference. The puddle is very clear and doesn't contrast too much with its surroundings, and I love the color. I was blown away of how good this lens is, especially for its price. It's only $60 on Amazon, and if you don't know, for big brands like Lincoln and Miller, it's extremely hard to find a lens under $100, and those lenses aren't anything really to write home about. I've had this lens for about a year now, and I use it pretty much exclusively. I use the WENS every once in a while because I paid a lot for it and it's pretty, but from a practicality standpoint, I prefer the Auto Dark. I can't recommend this lens enough. I've heard from multiple people that the Singles by Arc 1 is another good one, and that is just a staple in the welding industry. I really want to pick one up, but it's slightly more expensive. One day, I guess. Awesome value, awesome everything. This lens is a must buy.
These last two lenses have a very natural color to them, so through the arc shot, it's gonna kind of look like you're not really looking through anything, or there's no tint to the lens itself, but it's there. It's just the camera is not picking it up very well, but I just wanted to show you that there is a difference. Tradesman has a slight bluish hue to it, but overall it has a very natural looking color, and it's what I prefer. I really love how this lens looks, but for some reason this lens and this lens only, the camera is just not picking up the puddle. All you see through the footage is this bright light, and trust me, this is not what you see while you're welding. You can see the puddle clear as day. Unfortunately, this is the footage I got. I've tried doing it multiple times. I don't know why it's doing this, but you can really see your surroundings with this footage, and it gives you a really good idea of the clarity and the color of this lens. I just love this lens a lot. Trust me, it's a great lens. I highly recommend it.
Now the last lens I want to discuss is the Tefwawe. I've never seen anyone with this lens, nor have I ever heard of this company. The way I found it, it was a sponsored product on Amazon. When you look at welding lenses, typically I'm very skeptical when it comes to sponsored products. Like I won't even click on the ad search results at the top of Google searches because I have trust issues, I guess. But I'm not gonna lie, this design on the lens intrigued me. So did the price. At 60 bucks, just like the Tradesman, it got me curious. So I read some of the reviews and most of them seem legit. The main takeaway from the reviews is that it's an affordable lens that works solid. Basically, a lens with good clarity, is durable, and no arc flashes for 60 bucks. That's a big win. Now, this being the most recent lens I have bought, I haven't had it for long enough and I can't speak for its longevity, but everything else checks out. For the exact same reason as the Arc 1 Tradesman, I give this lens a 5 stars when it comes to value, taking longevity out of account since I've only had this for about a month.
The camera is picking up the puddle a lot better on this Huawei. But, I went back and forth between this lens and the Tradesman a bunch of times, and I really can't find a noticeable difference between the two. I just really love both of these lenses. And you can see the puddle a lot clearer in real life. But, I was thinking about it. Maybe the camera is picking up all this light that we can't really perceive with our own eyes and our brain. I don't know, something to think about. Let me know what you think about that. For some reason, these two lenses come out really bright through the footage.
I would also like to mention that all of these lenses, except for the Viking, of course, will fit the Tiger hood as well as the Weld tube front flip adapter. The only lenses that will fit the Celstrom front flip adapter without modification is the 2 fixed lenses that I own. If you want to get one of these auto darkening lenses to fit in the Celstrom, you can see here that slot is only accommodating for the fixed lens. You'd have to cut that open, and there's a bunch of videos on YouTube on how to do that. Tell me in the comments which lens you guys recommend. That way I can buy 6 more lenses and make a part 2 video. If this video helped at all, please like and subscribe, and check out this video where I compare 2 popular front flip adapters. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one.